Okay. This project we started in September 2016, and it's a 3-year project, so we are halfway. And we have been using some of the tools provided by HPRC. So it's my pleasure today to share some of our results and findings and experiences with you this afternoon. Yeah. Just to make sure, if you know where Denmark is and where Aarhus University Hospital is, it is one of the largest hospitals in Denmark, as you can see, and we are in the middle of everything in central Denmark region. In Denmark, it is the regions who own and run the hospitals, and they're all public funded. You can see some of our figures here. It's a rather large hospital, I think in Danish conditions, maybe also at least in Northern European conditions. But moreover, our hospital has for 10 years in a row been by peers nominated to be the best hospital in Denmark. And that counts for more than just size. Well, the aims of Central Denmark region is, of course, to make sure that our citizens get the healthcare in a quality and efficiency which they can expect. But of course, our citizens expect more of us than just delivering healthcare. They also expect us to give or to take part and be responsible in some of the overall issues which we are all concerned about. For example, waste and plastic. In our hospital, we have for many years been working systematically with our waste. And as you can see, in 2017, we had a total of 3,300 tons of solid waste. So this is not hazardous waste, but it's solid waste. Only 20% of that has been recycled. The rest has gone to incinerators. And a little bit goes to landfill still. But our politicians have set a target for us that by 2030, we should come up at a recycling rate of 70%. And that is a challenge, definitely. So we have to reverse these figures. And in this connection, we need to do a lot of things totally different compared to what we do today. And that's why our focus has gone to plastic, because we know from a mapping we have done that 20% of our solid waste comes from clean plastic packaging. Right. Also, I think most of you in this room are aware of these issues related to plastic and packaging, and waste is high on the agenda at the European level, I think also globally. So that's just one more reason to say that this is a concern which is shared by all of us. And we are so happy in the project that now there is also political action, so it gives us all a common and solid ground to take actions on. Just to make clear to you, the overall aims of the project, it is to increase recycling and maybe, if possible, find more circular solutions of hospital packaging waste. And moreover, we have to do this by including everybody in the value chain, which could be maybe some of the companies you might represent. And also to make sure that the changes we suggest are changes that gives also both commercial and maybe also environmental value along the value chain. As our philosophy is that if there is no value in the solutions we try to bring about, they will not live long. Okay, can I ask how many of you are familiar with the circular economy agenda? Please raise your hands. Okay, thank you very much. Some of you, last year in March in Brussels, I made a similar speech. There were 100 medical plastic engineers in the room, and only one knew about this topic. So it's great progress now. There's much more people here. Still, I'd like to say the background for our work is this, we call it the butterfly model provided by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. I think most of you may have been in contact with this. But how can we apply this to plastic packaging in a hospital setting? Here you see, let's say, half a butterfly model. This is the right side of the model, concerned with finite resources like fossil resources. So the general idea of this model is that the smaller the circles are, the more efficiently are the resources circulated. So the point is how to get to the center. And more practically, and I'll come back to this model and explain more about it, what results we have come to so far. But the questions we are working with here is basically how do we, you may not be so happy about it, but how do we avoid using packaging at all? How do we reduce packaging? Or how can we recycle packaging? Also, just to put it more into flesh and blood, just one example we are currently discussing. A lot of the fluids we get at the hospital comes to us in bags in different sizes, and these bags are often covered with an overwrap, an extra layer of plastic packaging. And this overwrap is there for many good reasons. One could be to prevent evaporation, of course also to keep sterilization. But what we found is that we as a hospital, we in our tenders put a demand of a shelf life time of 36 months. But some of these products are never in our shelves for more than 2 weeks. So could there be a potential, depending on the product of course, that we could rethink our demands on product shelf life and by that maybe reduce a plastic layer? If we could do so, we could easily halve the plastic weight of that specific product. We could reduce the cost, and on top of that, we could also ease the nurses' workload because they would have to do less unpackaging. Well, one of the first things we did in the project, this is just a little bit about the background for how we work, but one of the first things we did was to map our plastic to better understand what kind of plastic do we have and what are the challenges. And this is where the tools from HPRC comes into the picture, because we did a study using the same methodology used by Stanford healthcare clinics and hospitals in order to be able to benchmark. So we had our nurses sort plastic packaging for 48 hours in 9 different wards, and we get some interesting results out of that. First of all, we found out, yes, it is possible for healthcare staff in most functions to sort out at the source, because it's very important that we do not get these very, very clean plastic materials mixed up with more dirty or polluted fractions, because they will lose value and it will cost a lot of money to get it untangled again. Also, we found out that the more controlled work areas the sorting takes place in, the more plastic can be sorted. We learned, you may look up here and see in the patient wards, very little plastic was sorted out. And honestly, we, in the middle of the test, we actually gave it up because our nurses in the wards are so focused on their patients, they could simply not concentrate also thinking of what to do with the plastics. Also, the plastic articles we find in the patient wards are rather small. They are related to medicines and to bandages, so it's rather small pieces of plastic. So our conclusion was it's simply not worth it to try to collect plastic in patient wards, but in operation theaters it makes sense, at the pharmacy it makes sense, and in intensive preparation it makes sense. So that's also a message. Try to do it where it makes sense. We did only a small sorting exercise for 48 hours, but we're happy that we followed the methodology used by Stanford so we could benchmark, and surprisingly we got exactly the same results as Stanford except for one variable. I have learned last week only from a Dutch hospital. They also did a sorting exercise, same result. So even if we do not know everything of our plastic, I think we know enough to start acting. So we have had all our plastic sorted and analyzed by experts, and have all the data in a database. And here you can see the analysis of the different types of plastic we found in our hospital. You can see the major part here, the blue piece of the pie chart here, is unknown plastic. And this is really serious business, because this could not be identified by just visual inspection from experts. And I'm really talking experts. We had a few of these, we took 20 samples from this category and had it tested at the laboratory. And what they found was that out of 20 tests, 18 of them were really ugly ones. And with ugly ones, I mean combined polymers, which are completely hopeless to recycle. So here is a big task ahead of everybody involved in packaging. Well, the second largest fraction, you can see, is the orange one. And that is LDPE, which was good news for us because we already had in place a logistic track for sorting out LDPE. But let's see if it comes up here. Sorry for this. You can see we find a large amount of our LDPE here. Just to confuse you, the color has now changed. So now LDPE is no more orange, now it's blue. So you can see we find a lot of LDPE in peel packs. And peel packs we often find in the operation theaters. It's something our nurses know. It's something they could sort if we ask them to do so. Put all the peel packs in this bin. But if they do so, we will also get 6 other polymers in the bin, which again will prevent us from recycling it. So, ladies and gentlemen, if any of you are in the peel pack business, there's something to be done here. Yeah. Well, this is a picture from the sorting exercise, and you can see here on your left hand, the blue bags are the ordinary solid waste. And at the right hand, you can see the bags of clean plastic packaging, which was sorted by our nurses. So this is what our staff is confronted with every day, and it provokes them a lot because I don't know how it is where you come from, but in Denmark, at household level, people have to sort their waste and taking plastic away. So when they come to work, they want to continue with that, and it doesn't really make sense because we cannot recycle this. We also, whenever possible, when we did this analysis of our waste, we tagged the waste with the supplier, and we could do that in 50% of the packaging. And in this very, very small amount of plastic, we found more than 162 different suppliers on those we could tag. So at the one hand, we have our dedicated staff at the hospital who are willing and able to sort the plastic. At the other hand, we have a combination of very complex plastics and very many different suppliers, making it not so easy to go about where to start. Anyway, together with the HPRC, we thought the best way to start is to take top of the list suppliers of plastic packaging waste. Let's meet, let's talk, together with the suppliers of polyolefins, recyclers, healthcare personnel, people, the staff of procurement. So we met in Aarhus last spring and sat around for 2 days and said, okay, how can we go about this? Well, if we want to involve the whole value chain. So we thought, okay, it's not going to be easy. There are so many different issues to be sorted out. So let's do it simple. So we thought of the most simple product we have in the hospital, which could be bottles with irrigation fluids, that is sterile water and what do you call that? Natrium chloride water. Yes, they're very, very clean, very, very simple packaging and nice big pieces of plastic. So let's start with that. Yeah. So we have now, since last summer, been in dialogue with some of our main suppliers of bottles of irrigation fluids, which is Becker and Fresenius Kabi and B. Braun. We have intensive dialogue, different tracks, different issues we discussed with these suppliers. For example, we discussed what is the ratio between volume and mix of polymers which we can recycle with some economic sense across the value chain. Can we make the nurses sort out much more single polymers? And because the quality of the plastic is so high, can we then get it back into other high value chains? Because for the time being, we see no possibilities of getting these polymers back to the medical industry. You know the regulation even better than I do, so we see this would be a problem. But there are other high value chains where we maybe could get this plastic back to. Could recycled hospital polymers end up in new products? What kind of new products should that be? Could we use or reuse the empty bottles in other industries, like, for example, shampoo or detergent? Or, the very best, are there ways where we can minimize plastic packaging? So these are, from an overall point of view, the issues we're working with. And just also to add a little more on some of the thoughts we have on the value chain approach. Normally, I think, of course, medical industry will think of us, the hospitals, as their end customer. But when we introduce recycling into the value chain, up comes another customer, which wishes and needs also has to be incorporated. And this gives us just one more language, one more set of concepts to cope with. For example, I think in the medical industries there are all the approval systems, the standards, the compliance, sustainability, etc. At the hospital we think of patient safety. I think medical industry also do that. And of course the work environment, but also all the resources we see every day pass through our hands and slipping out into nothing. But when we go to the recycler, it's a total different language. Again, they're talking about melt flow indexes, recycling compatibility and design guidelines. So part of the exercise is to make all these different parties, and of course there are more also if you go backwards in the value chain, more languages, more concerns, more cultures to meld into one. And we think there are common languages which are understood by all, and that is value in terms of euro, and of course also reduction in CO2 emissions and reduced energy consumption. So we're trying to make the analysis across the value chain in terms of euro, reduced CO2 emissions and energy consumption in order to see can we make better solutions compared to what we have now. And on top of that, we know that no changes will take part if there's not a demand. And we are the customer, so we are also the ones responsible for making, let's say, the pull factor here, and putting up new tender requirements, and I also work with that. You remember the pie charts, which were very complex, and we think that one way of increase recyclability is by reducing the complexity. So we think that specifying and limiting the types of polymers we want to see in the future in our plastic packaging waste is one way to go ahead. and also very, very simply just to demand that all plastic packaging is marked for recycling. So we can get rid of all these unknown and unmarked plastic which we can do nothing about. Also competitive factors, because we want also, of course, we know this is a new agenda and we want to inspire and drive the market. So we work together with Plastic Recyclers Europe, because they are the ones who know the technicalities of all this and can set up some sound criteria of what should we request for. So that is what we try to translate into specific criteria in the competitive factors, to make sure that what we get out of it can be recycled, and also that it can be recycled by our local recycler, because of course transport has an impact on the CO2 emissions and energy consumption. So if any of you are interested in diving more into this, I can only recommend the homepage of Plastic Recyclers Europe. They have some very specific guidelines, design guidelines for various types of packaging, and they're very, very specific. Yeah. So I'm near by ending. Yeah. Okay. We have spent, you may think this is a lot of time spent on just one product, but we decided to be very thorough this first product to get a lot of experiences out of it. But there, of course, is a lot more work to be done. And for us as customers and hospitals, we will work more on the tenders and make sure that this comes out also as demands in the market. And I work with other hospitals to share these demands, so you will not get only from one strange hospital in one strange country, but we hope that this will spread, and we are always willing to share our work if need be. And of course we will also, and we are currently also now gearing our hospital to sort much more specific polymers out, the valuable ones of course. For recyclers, the best thing on earth would be if there could be a global agreement on these design guidelines and what does it take to make a product fully recyclable. For brand owners, simplify packaging design, limit the numbers of polymers you work with, and mark for recycling. It's not rocket science, all of this. It can be done, but it takes time, of course. So, as I said, there's a lot to be done, and we are always interested in working with companies who want to work further on this, so you're welcome to contact me also when you get back home, and thank you for the attention.